So a little introduction to the Buell I have right here. I got this bike about 4 months ago. I got it from a guy up on the East Coast. I saw it on Facebook Marketplace, and I was in the market for a new bike, and I was like, damn it, that's it, like I'm buying it. I'd always found like Buells to be a weird and very interesting bike. Nobody knows what they are. It's very rare. So I was like, all right, whatever, like I'll pull the trigger, the price was right. And I've had it ever since. It's been a really good project for me to work on while I've been stuck inside because of all the COVID stuff going on right now. I did the whole exhaust. I wrapped the whole exhaust system here, you can see, which I think looks pretty nice. I'm pretty happy with it. I rebuilt the top end. Some of the rocker box gaskets were leaking, so did kind of a top end rebuild on that. Got my new intake on the bike itself. But yeah, it's been an awesome motorcycle. So let me go ahead and go through some of the statistics on the bike here real quick. So, the heart of any motorcycle, especially a Buell, is the engine itself. So this is a 1203cc Harley-Davidson engine with custom Buell heads on it. It's rocking some nice hydraulic lifters. It's a 2-valve per cylinder. Overhead valve, push rod activated. It has hydraulic lifters in the engine. Produces, I think it's about 95 horsepower at 6,100 RPM, and somewhere around 85 foot-pounds of torque north of 5,000 RPM. So it's no complete race bike, but I'm telling you, all that torque is so fun. And that's really what makes this bike such a unique motorcycle to ride, is the amount of torque it has in this short, compact bike. The short wheelbase makes it really entertaining to ride. So the Buell motor itself, I'm not gonna lie, it's not perfect in terms of leaks. A lot of these gaskets, as they get older on a motorcycle, can develop very small oil weeps and stuff like that. But it's not bad. It's not like you're pouring oil in your garage. There might be a little tiny drop every now and then. So kind of my final thoughts on the engine. Plenty of torque, plenty of power, like I said. I don't really beat this motorcycle up at all. I rarely take it north of probably 4,000 RPM just because, I don't really need to. It's a great bike, and it doesn't need to go that high up in the rev range to have a great time. I have a Mikuni HSR carburetor on the motorcycle over here, which, as opposed to the stock constant velocity Harley-Davidson carburetor, forget which brand it is. But the Mikuni HSR is an awesome carburetor. It took a little bit of work kind of finding the right jetting for it, making it run exactly where I wanted it, having the accelerator pump kick in where I like it. I know everything has their suggested, this is where we want the accelerator pump. But I think it's also a lot about rider feel, what feels good to you, what feels right. I found that their suggestion had the accelerator pump kick in a little bit early, which wasn't really what I enjoyed, especially if you're riding around at low RPMs, just kind of putting around a parking lot. It wasn't really the right amount of beans for the bike. So I've got it tuned exactly where I like it right now. So you can see on there, I've just got a cheap little K&N air filter that I actually bought, and then milled out the inside of it so it fits my adapter plate for the Mikuni, and runs really well. It was if you go to Harley and you try and buy an air cleaner from Harley, it's $300-400 for something like this, which just doesn't really make sense. So yeah, that carburetor and air cleaner setup I really like. It's not perfect, but the bike runs really well with it. I've got it tweaked so that after probably 15 seconds of choke, it goes in a really nice stable idle. And one thing you will know about Harleys or these Buell bikes in general, they don't like to run cold. If you are a commuter, which I am, and I do commute on this bike, you have to plan several minutes of warm up for this motorcycle. If you start it up cold, it's going to want to stay choked for a while. You're going to want to wait until the RPMs come up to a stable amount and it's not barely idling with the choke. which sounds bad, but it's very common for these. And once it gets up to operating temperature, it runs beautifully, but it does take a minute. And on that note, you really shouldn't try and go run these bikes when they're cold. I mean, the bike isn't going to like it. You aren't going to like it. And things just aren't going to run well. So, factor that into your morning, letting it warm up for a couple of minutes before you go out there and run it. Especially if you're going to be going out and running the motorcycle really hard. So looking over here at our transmission, it's your stock Harley. It's a 5-speed transmission. One of the complaints with these Buells is, especially on my year, is they have, they call it like the half moon shifter. And yeah, it has a little bit of wiggle to it, which isn't perfect. And I've thought about changing it. I've changed out the bushings in here to try and make it a little bit tighter. And like I said, it's not perfect. But also, it's not unbearable at all. Riding is very fine. Upshift's fine, downshift's fine. It isn't a race bike transmission like my Kawasaki's where it's so crisp, but it's not bad at all. Very rideable, very fun. Kind of another fun little feature on the Buells down here is you can see they have their muffler, and also on the other side of this is the rear shock absorber mounted underneath the engine. And that was in an effort to try and keep the center of gravity as low as possible on these motorcycles. So obviously, styling is really one of the most personal parts about a motorcycle. Everybody thinks a different thing about these bikes. I really like this. I mean, it is showing its age a little bit. It's a little bit dated in some of the plastics on it in terms of the design style. But I think that it's a beautiful and unique motorcycle. I think the front end is very cool with the nice big 6-inch, I believe it's a 6-inch headlight with the wind fairing. It's unique, it's fun. I like these aftermarket mirrors. I can't say they're the best in terms of actually looking out, which I may end up changing someday, but I think they look really nice on the bike. So my Buell only has a speedo, no tachometer on the motorcycle. There were different editions that had a tach. Some do, some don't. I don't have one. It doesn't bother me at all. This is especially one of the motorcycles where it's all about feel. And it's all about, how does the engine feel? How does it sound? Is it time for an upshift? Is it not? So you really don't need a tach. It makes the experience a little bit more, I don't know, involved with the rider because you're listening and feeling the bike and you're not just watching a needle go up and down, which sounds silly, but I think it's kind of an interesting part of this bike. So just like for any motorcycle, the seating position is an important part, especially if you're thinking about buying one of these bikes. So the Buell does have these pretty low clip-on handlebars. The seating position is not super comfortable. I'm not gonna lie to you. That being said, I do commute on this motorcycle almost every day, 30 minutes both ways, and I have no problem. I'm a pretty young guy, so it may not be better for some of the older guys who are having back and shoulder problems. But, not the most comfortable bike, but it's kind of part of the personality of this motorcycle with those low clip-ons, the sport bike, aesthetic and feel to it. So going up here and looking at our speed and everything, I think one funny part about this motorcycle is the key. It's got one of these weird circular keys like you would have for your toolbox. I don't know why it has that, but I guess that's what the Buell designers thought was the new thing to do for motorcycle keys. So it's got that funny little guy. So if we switch it on here, all that comes on is our odometer and then low oil pressure since we don't have the motor running yet. So I'll see if I put it in neutral here for you guys. So just click it up. All too much. Yeah, so it took me just a second. I'm on a hill right now, so I'm trying not to roll backwards. But here's the cool part about the Buell. Let me start this up for you guys. I will choke it at first for the first little bit. And you can see and hear this big ass bike. And you can see everything on the bike shakes. That's normal. You can see my hand kind of rattling here. The front cowl, everything's moving. The whole bike definitely shakes. So let me go ahead and unchoke. So here it is, just idling. You can hear that air filter is really loud down there, especially when you're moving. You hear it just sucking in air for this bike. But so, idles very nicely. It is a warm bike. I rode it probably an hour and a half ago, so it's still, pretty warm. Didn't take much warm up there. But I'll give you guys a couple revs here. so definitely a very unique and unmistakable motorcycle. People always comment, oh man, like your bike's so big, it's shaking all around. Yeah, it's very normal for this bike. It's a healthy idle. And it kind of adds to some of the fun of it, just showing how big those cylinders are in such a weird small little bike. And when you're going slow, and even when you're going mid-range, in the revs, you can feel every single combustion event in this motor. You can feel each single boom, 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 which I think is a pretty cool thing, especially when you're that in touch with your bike. With it being a carbureted motorcycle too, it's also kind of a very direct feel between the rider and the motorcycle. So just kind of some of my final thoughts here on my Buell. Is it a perfect motorcycle? No, it's not perfect. It doesn't have a fuel indicator, which kind of is a peeve of mine. I know it's not bad to just open the gas tank up and look inside, but yeah, a gas indicator would be nice. Like I said, never ran out of gas on this bike, but it's more of like peace of mind, just kind of knowing before it would happen. It's like, oh, like how much gas do I have? Oh, I'm low, thanks. I'm not asking for a big dial. The short wheelbase makes it a really interesting motorcycle to ride, especially at low speeds. It took a little bit of getting used to for me. I'm used to riding. I've had Yamahas, Kaways, all kinds of different stuff, but it's different. It's heavier, it's bigger, you do feel the weight, and you do feel the short wheelbase. It's kind of hard to describe what it's like riding it at slow speed. You really have to be on the bike. But a lot of clutch use on this bike, and especially at low RPMs. These big 45-degree V-twins don't really like running super smooth at super slow RPMs. And I do believe that every motorcycle and every car or truck, for that matter, has a personality to it. And this motorcycle definitely has a personality to it. It happens to be one that I like. It's quirky. I compare it very often to driving something on two wheels. That's my diesel truck. I have a Ram 2500 Cummins diesel. And that's exactly what this bike is like. It'll get up and go. If you want to get up and go and you give it the beans, this bike will absolutely move. But it has so much torque in the low end that it's just like, it's relaxing to ride because it doesn't take a lot of gas. It's an eighth of a throttle and you're cruising down the road at a nice speed. The motor's chugging along and doing real nice. It's a diesel motorcycle on two wheels. I know obviously it's not, but to me, that's what it feels like. It feels a lot like my truck. It still has the sport bike aesthetic. I'm not really a fan of, street glides, wide glides, Dynaglides, any of those guys, any of the Harleys. They're wonderful motorcycles, just not really my taste. And I think this kind of really bridges the gap between the unique V-twin engine and also an aesthetic that I like and a riding style that I appreciate. I don't beat this thing up. I don't lean it over that far. I mean, I'll get it pretty leaned over on an on-ramp or an off-ramp or something, but, I'm not, like, out there trying to drag my knee doing anything goofy. So, I guess my parting words on the M2 and Buells in general, I love this motorcycle. Wouldn't trade it for a lot of stuff out there. And I highly encourage, if there's ever one for sale, for you guys to pick it up. Or if you have somebody who you see, ask them to ride it. Like, just check it out. It's a really cool bike, and it's something that we don't really see out there anymore. So thank you guys for watching. Hope you enjoyed it. Hope it wasn't too boring. But yeah.